Oh yes, and we are live right now. How are you feeling?
Live on the recording machine.
Oh yeah.
Live on the recording
Yeah,
devices.
yeah. How are you feeling right now?
I'm good.
Did anything? What's been going on in your life? I feel like we've been like running through like 10 episodes and we haven't like really caught up. I haven't really asked you what's going on. What's going on in your life that I don't know about?
That you don't know about? Well, that's basically nothing. So I have nothing to share.
Yeah.
Yeah, just we're in the middle of our Infinity EP rollout.
Yeah.
So we have more songs coming out. We have
How's that going?
How's it going? I think it's going the same way projects go, whereas it's going well. You always wish it was going better. You have big vision, but generally like I feel like we put out art we're proud of, and we're getting a lot of support from people, some from our fans. Yeah. So, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
What's happening here?
I don't know.
You can't hear me?
Yeah.
I don't want that.
I like that.
This is better?
Sounds much better.
Okay.
Yeah. So, talking about how you put out a project and it no longer belongs to you. The role of the artist is just to create the art. It isn't to answer to critics. It isn't to... You just paint it and put it on the wall.
But we all want success. We all want approval from our fans or society. Like we want it because if for the art to go somewhere, there's, other criteria.
Yeah. And I think it's part of like a mark of the artist where they are in their creativity, whether you want the approval, whether you want the affirmation. I think the best art comes out of when you don't care. Yeah.
Well, it's definitely like I love not caring in the studio, not caring during creation. So you don't have to like worry about that. And then when it's done, you have to start thinking about that. Yeah,
because it's a business at the end of the day. So you just cannot. Yeah.
Unfortunately, we live in a society. Yeah. I saw something once on some post that was like, we live on this big blue floating globe that can provide us all the food we need, everything. Yet we choose to
everything for free to
work and kill ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, we choose to work and we
be
can
slaves
just live
to
here
money
for free. Yeah, you can just go fishing.
Yeah,
you
we
can
could
just
all work.
Go take walks.
Yeah, if we just worked as a community.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Even if you didn't, I think you have a choice. Except when you get sick, that's when things get tricky.
That you
like
need
you can
a
live
health
on this.
facility.
Yeah, you really need the health facility. But if your food is your medicine and your medicine is your food, like Plato says, then maybe you don't even get sick.
Yeah, but if the doctors were being doctors because other community members were farming or building their houses, and they treated you medically because it was a give-take trade,
that's communism, right?
Sounds good to me.
It's illegal to be a communist in America, right? It's illegal.
Really
it's illegal to be a communist.
Socialist, maybe, right?
Yeah,
it's different.
It's kind of funny how a term like communism
it's
or
dirty.
Being labeled like a communist was really dirty, especially in was it the 50s, 60s from the movies that I see?
Yeah.
Like communism, being labeled a communist in the US was like, or maybe we just didn't grow up in the era where we know the ills of communism, because the ills of communism were also like very evident, right?
Yeah, true that.
You would know because it's the system of the Russians, right? And the Shteters.
Communism? No, that was later.
Much later?
Yeah. We were already out of there.
I need to brush up on my history. So today something special happened. You're about to say something?
No, tell me what you were going to say. I was going to...
Something special happened today. So we took a walk today around our neighborhood, and I must admit that we really... Let me put this off. Who chooses to wear with a leather jacket like with all these lights? So something special... It's funny that I call it special. Something happened. So we were feeling unhealthy. We were in one space for a very long time. We decided to go for a walk.
I'm waiting to see what you share because I hope it's not what I think you're going to share.
It is actually. It is.
Because I'm like, please, that's just like inappropriate.
Okay. Yeah. So a man taking a shit on the streets is inappropriate in a third world country.
In a third world country?
in a
okay.
In a first world country.
First world,
yes.
right.
First world in quotes.
Yeah, people don't want to. Yes. Anyways, it was very upsetting and traumatizing and burned into my brain.
Yeah. The reason why it's worth discussing is I thought in that moment when you did, I totally missed everything.
He luckily didn't see it.
I didn't see it. I only saw a guy weirdly putting on sunglasses and he's leaning forward with headphones. So in my mind, I was like, okay, he's in his 60s or 50s, right? He must be listening to like a great album. Like the music is making him lean forward, right? That's all I saw. And in that moment, yeah, you were like, oh my God. I'm like, what? She's like, somebody's taking a number 2 on the street.
It was a comedy. It was the taking the number 2, seeing the bare ass, some penis, and the poo coming out. It was like really
it's
horrible.
Bad. It's terrible. Yeah. Now I see why it's a bad idea to discuss this. But I think
you're like everyone's like, okay, I'm no longer listening.
Yeah, I shouldn't have gone there. But it was terrible. It was terrible.
The point is, there's horrible poverty and homelessness all over the U.S.
All over the U.S. Yes.
This great nation that
actually
the most powerful, one of the most powerful nations.
From that moment alone, we can draw so many lessons.
Yeah.
Should we just freestyle on this? Like you saw a man taking a number 2, right? Mm-hmm. We were walking together. I saw a man listening to music. You saw a man with a bare ass. You saw his genitalia and something coming out of him.
Yes.
I missed all of that.
Yes.
Which also means I see the goodness and you see.
Well, I also think as a woman, when I start seeing a man that may or may not be exposed.
Oh, yeah.
It's like it's a protective instinct.
Yes.
You're always sort of assessing men.
Yes.
Because men are messed up. And
Yeah.
But,
Well,
but
most men are messed up. But
this is a good segue to what we wanted to talk about, actually.
Yeah. But from that, also, when you look at it and internalize it, you're like, there is a big homelessness problem in America, especially Los Angeles.
And you see it as there's a big lack of public toilet.
Yeah, I see it as a big lack of like public toilets in
So you're saying
area.
You don't have to be homeless. Anyone could at any moment.
I've seen people pee on the street. It's not because because everybody here doesn't want they kind of keep people segregated. You don't have
what do you mean?
To use this facility, for example, so many Starbucks and other places have like a code you have to punch in to use those facilities. So for people who have weak bladders, and I've had that issue before. If you have a weak bladder and you really need to go. So you're stuck between you're at the mercy of a pub, a store.
Do you want an indecent exposure?
You want an indecent exposure, a citation, or
you can become put on the list of a sexual predator.
Exactly.
Or they could put some.
I was told that if you're caught peeing on the street, you're actually given the same penalty as a sex offender.
No, you can be put on the sex offender list.
Damn.
Because you've done indecent exposure.
Yeah, we need more public bathrooms. Basically, clear the homelessness problem. Yeah, basically, and have the decency to go to a latrine, bro. Like that was crazy. That was really, really crazy. I understand there are no bathrooms, but why at that spot? Maybe somebody pissed him off and he wanted to just leave it on somebody's lawn.
We actually don't know.
We don't know.
Maybe
he
wasn't homeless. Who knows?
But we'll keep on investigating and then come back.
But what I wanted to say, so first of all, before we get into it, I'm Miriam Tamar.
And I'm GNL Zamba.
We are NSIMBI.
Yes.
This is the NSIMBI podcast.
Yeah.
And
a strange topic to begin with, by the way.
But I see how it connects because I think what we want to talk about today is like, we've been back in LA for a little bit right now. And so some of these things in our minds are coming back up, certain topics. And, and again, it's like this homeless person gives, again, you have the idea of the states versus the reality. the experience on the ground. And I think that for me was connecting to your first time when you moved here. You'd visited, you toured, but you never lived here. And I think when you started living here, your understanding of the States and your understanding of yourself as an African man in the States, as a black man in the States, has really changed.
Yeah, but for the record, I need to give some benediction to my race. If you're assuming that this person was black, you're totally wrong. This
was an old white man.
Usually.
But it's the idea of what America, what people think it is and what it really is. And also, I'm also going to say, because I'm not just trying to hate on the States, that
I love the States.
Yeah, in my experience, every country I've gone to or spent time in has so many pros and so many cons. So it's more that the idea of any superiority complex is totally bullshit, because everywhere is different and everywhere has flaws.
Yeah, most definitely. This reminds me of a story. There's a town in India. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't think
in the comments.
Okay,
some people in the comments might have more details. But there was a time in India where part of the resistance was to do a number 2 on the streets, like take a shit on the streets. So that you disgust whoever is trying to colonize, and they don't come into that territory.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So I think it was called Bombay or something like that.
I hope we can
have to
stop
look it up.
talking about poop now for the rest of the episode. You know, I love talking about it, but I don't
Usually
know that
it's you.
I don't know that it's
Usually
a globally
it's
a globally loved topic.
It's not loved, but it's one of those things that if it stopped working,
by some of us.
If it stopped working, you would definitely notice. Do you remember when we went to Ndere Center to see a performance and Mr. Ranjezi did this monologue about the importance of the NS? Do you remember that?
Yes, vaguely, but I don't remember why it was important.
If you had listened, you would know.
No, I'm not a good student, apparently.
If you have constipation, then you'd know. Why are we still talking about this?
Seriously,
Can we
stop.
introduce the topic for today?
Well, the segue is like totally messed up, and I tried to like smooth it out so it wasn't so like weird and like
yes.
And I don't want to make light of it. That's why the point is we're talking about today. We're going to be talking about the reality of, I guess, being a black man or an African man in the States, or what that's come to mean to you versus being a black man in Africa, in Uganda.
Alongside, I've been trying to put off this topic for a long time.
I know.
It's not something I really want to discuss.
Yeah, as you say, it's traumatizing to talk about it. But that's why we want to talk about it.
It's not that traumatizing. It's triggering. It has so many things that it packs within just.
Yeah. Well, we can talk about what you want to talk about and go as deep as you feel like and whatever. I think it's just good to share some insights and experiences for people to get a sense of what you've been through and what's going on in society.
I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it, but I was reading a book by Ngozi Chimamanda Adichie, right? And
Americana.
It's called Americana, and it's by this Nigerian.
Everyone should read it. If you haven't read it, please read it.
As an immigrant to the United States.
As a human being.
As a human being, this is the guide to being an immigrant in America, at least an African immigrant in America, because it puts so many things into perspective and you begin understanding.
And you were reading it when you first...
certain nuances.
You were reading it when you first moved over here, correct?
No, the big mistake I made was not to read it.
I told you to read it.
Was waiting for 3 years to read it.
By the way, I mailed it to your sister, like...
Yeah. I know.
I mailed it to his sister, like, within
you're in America.
The first couple of weeks. I'm like, yeah.
This is your Bible now.
Yeah.
So, in reading this book 3 years into being in the US, right? It puts so many things for me into perspective. And I read this book and laughed at so many things because there were things that I always noticed but never really put too much thought on them. But you certainly know what they mean. Or by the time you spend 3 years of interacting with everybody, you at least know where some of the mannerisms, that fake smile I always describe to you, that pisses me off. And when people use things like beautiful when they lack a a way to describe your culture or your place that you come from or your experience, and all they can say is, oh, it's beautiful. Did you know that was a thing? She dwells for like, I think, a chapter on this. So it's certain things that you could even miss, but they mean.
You're saying describing where you come from as beautiful, or what do you mean?
No, it's like when somebody, there are so many things that are described as beautiful, whereas if someone was having a conversation with someone from, let's say, America, they wouldn't just describe them as beautiful. Your beautiful country, but you know the country is beautiful, but it also has like, I don't know. I don't even know how to like really totally the word beautiful is used in so many contexts when you're talking to people from the West, because they don't know how to have a conversation with you about where you come from. And sometimes it's used to as a safe zone not to insult you. So they have trained themselves to say beautiful instead of having a real conversation. Does that make sense?
Not really. I'll be honest.
Okay, let me give you an example.
I don't recall the book well enough, and I also know that a lot of people here have not.
So it could have just been one line, but I'll give you an example. Like you and I always talk about how we know the African prints that are beautiful, and we know the ones that are hideous.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But
you
so
mean
many
like
people,
saying things in a patron, sort of just like, oh, such a beautiful culture, or like washing it over with calling everything beautiful?
It's not really coming from a place where it's patronizing. It's coming from a place where they don't know how to describe it because they are stepping carefully not to insult somebody or say something off. Do you get what I'm saying? Okay, just listen to it this way. We always talk about how people are dressed up in some ugly patterns. They are African, right? But some patterns are like ugly, and you can really call it out and say, this does not really look beautiful, right? But when that pattern is put in front of like a Western audience, right? Well, much as all of us are different, right? And others will say it's beautiful, others will say it's ugly. 9 out of 10 times you'll find people describing it as beautiful, whether they agree or not.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So it's out of an attempt to respect a foreign culture that they don't know about. Westerners will just call anything from the culture beautiful.
Exactly. So it was describing things like that, and she's so talented with so gifted with the language, with the English language, right? Much as I think she's also gifted with her traditional, but she's so descriptive in the way that she observes the nuances. Now, the experience of a black man in America, right, is being able to notice those little subtle differences. We talked about microaggressions. We talked about what people mean when they say certain statements, but they mean totally the opposite. Or I don't even want to take it to racism, but the way racists could say something which to any other person might even seem like a compliment. Like, your people love watermelon, like, who doesn't? You get me? Yeah? While to a person who is African American, it's like, that's right in the bag of like you're racist. You get me? Because there's a connotation to it with all these drawings and the implications of how black people are always drawn with watermelons, being clowned for eating watermelon.
But I think it's important to distinguish, because I think you have a different experience. There's the African American experience, and I think there's your experience coming from Africa, where you were a majority. Everyone is black.
I'm getting to that. So, as a black man as a black man in America, it's a collection of so many realizations, and in one of those realizations is that you are whoever you are. I didn't know I was black until I came to the US.
Right.
You get.
That's what I was waiting for you to say, that, because I know you had a realization, or you told me that years ago, and that's always stood out to me.
Everywhere else, I'm a human being who's just like moving around, having a great time, having, like enjoying yourself. But in the US, they have to put you in a box so they can define you. And they always struggle to put you in a box. You find it on every form you feel. You find it in the news, in the way that they describe people. There's a need to always make people fit into this box that they have created of what a black man is and what they should be. And it's that the experience is kind of shocking. You get me? And even in conversations that were sparked out of just curiosity, you find that all of a sudden you're the representative of a whole race. Even in a conversation which could be at a dinner party or wherever, if somebody wanted to find out something, you find that you're the first ambassador of your people.
Well, I feel like you're the spokesman for Uganda, for East Africa, for Africa. And then you're also sometimes the spokesman for the Black experience, which is my God.
Like how can I even begin? I have my own experience. That's the only thing I can speak to, but I don't have the experience of, the whole region. Now, I'm not one of those people who doesn't know anything, because I know people who are clueless about so many things, right? But I know at least a little to share, right? So most of the times I would find myself, like talking about these places and, experiences. And I kind of felt in my first years here that it was almost like a duty to describe this place that I'm from to people.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe break down a few stereotypes here and there. And also to my African American brothers, because again, I realized that there's also groups of people that want to draw a line between us, between the Africans and the African Americans, while there are people who are eager for us to be united.
Mm-hmm.
So there are also those two factions even in the Black community. So you'll find that at times you're defending Africans to African Americans,
mm-hmm.
and most of the times you're trying to achieve Marcus Garvey's dream of uniting everybody Black on the whole planet, and reminding people that humanity actually began in Africa, and we have the answers to most of the suffering. At least we think we do have
mm-hmm.
the answers. So you find that after some time of after living here for some time, you get to realize that it's exhausting. You get me? Like you just want to live your life, that it isn't, you don't have to be defending something all the time. Sometimes you're just at a party to have a good time and drink and be silly and crack silly jokes and, talk about other places besides where you're from. But sometimes you're cornered and you feel you're almost giving a lecture. At least that's how I felt in the first places. And I'm saying this well knowing that I'm a kind of person who really loves a good conversation. But it's in the middle of even having that conversation that you get to realize that you're explaining something that these people have probably had since they were children, but they have never paid attention to it, much as just like I walked past that man who was taking a shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And didn't notice. It's there. Like he was leaning forward in a weird way, but I only saw music and something that was beautiful. You get me? You noticed that he was actually taking a number 2. So to use that example, and I hope I'm not wrong in this, but most of these people have been aware of the pain and the suffering of the African Americans in America, right? And then you find yourself as the African who has just got here explaining things that they should know from the time they were born. Or like in the land, how can I explain your land to you? Probably you're in your 50s, you're 40.
Yeah, there's so many times white people you are helping explain to white Americans about institutionalized racism, about the legacy and the trauma from slavery, like things like that. And it's like, this is your country, and it should be part of you learning history. And,
exactly.
And,
like you mean to tell me that,
and not just history, and knowing your society.
And knowing your society. And sometimes it would be very frustrating because, again, I feel we kind of have a duty to change the society, and like, you need to share, and the art of the conversation is where you find the moments where you can connect with people and heal the ignorance on both sides, because I'm ignorant of some things too, It's like through conversation we can correct each other and live in a more harmonious society. But you find yourself having conversations with people like in their 40s, 30s, or even 50s, some 60s. And the questions they ask are like almost like a nursery, like a child. You'd want to explain that to a child, but now you're explaining it to an adult, and you wonder whether the movement of Martin Luther, Malcolm X, and all of these other people who have been telling this story of suffering has not really sparked them to have the interest of at least reading just a few basics of that. So it's in the middle of a conversation that you find yourself and getting frustrated that you're seeing this is not a thing you can take on by yourself, and that your conversations are going to be futile.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I know with my mom or different relatives, people refer to like, I miss the days of the 60s and 70s. It was just and not talking about race, but talking about the politics, the environment, like to them, when they think of the world now versus this vision of the 60s and 70s, they're like, back then it was just such a better world. And I say, and I've continued to correct them when this comes up, and I say, well, it was for you. But for it's people of color, it was fucking horrible.
Yeah, but to defend your parents, they are well aware, but sometimes they get lost in.
No, I'm just saying, because at the same, there's a dissonance of understanding, because and also the way they see it is because if you were a child and you were sheltered, you weren't experiencing it. You can now look back and know what was going, or maybe in your 20s and 30s you had a better sense. But you the same way everyone looks back, not everyone, but we tend to look back at our childhoods, and things are like we paint a rosy picture, or you remember the good. Same with like an X with an X. A lot of times people remember the good. I don't have
X's.
Yeah. No. But okay, well, in a few years you can talk about me.
No, don't remember. Say that. Knock on wood. Knock on wood. Okay, so like you choose the good things about an experience and you ignore everything that's bad. I hate to go back to this example again. I only saw a man listening to music, leaning forward.
Okay.
This is the last time. I promise. While you noticed that this man was suffering, probably homeless, and that he was not, something was wrong. So most of America is me not noticing what's wrong with that picture and walking on while you noticed everything. That's the last time I'm using it.
Or you can say you saw a quick look and came up with your own idea versus seeing the actual details and realities of what's happening.
Yeah, a homeless man, no public toilets, and these whatever. Yeah, basically, just this is the last example of that, and I promise. America loves the talent that comes out of the African American experience or African experience. Let's call it an African experience, because to me, even just dividing up the two is an attempt again to divide the people. These are Africans. Like, America loves the talent of the Africans, their athleticism, their music, their creativity. But everything else out of that is threatening. Mm-hmm. And even as non-threatening, I would like to think I'm a non-threatening human being. You get me? Like, I know myself. I know what's in my heart. I know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's like I ask you.
But you clearly find people crossing the street when you're moving on it.
Or in an elevator, like being tense.
And you're kind of, you don't even know how to react to that, because you're not going to go to someone and be like, why? I don't know. Like this. It's just strange. This never really happened so much actually in West Hollywood, because West Hollywood is different. But it's strange that I got so much of that when I was east of Los Angeles recording my album. that every time I went down there in what would you call Silver Lake? What part of LA is that?
East LA. It's the east side.
Yeah, every time I went back to East LA, that's where most of those incidents used to happen.
I feel like you even told me about one just at the corner by the bus station and down there.
Yeah, but
so
when you think about
and I can
how many happened over there and one happening over here.
I also, but I mean,
but who cares? It happens.
There's also times it happens and you don't notice it, and I do, and I'm like, oh my god! Like, not just it can be a person in an
someone
elevator.
clenching their pals.
yes.
I don't even like pals, but that goes to speak to a society that has been taught to fear a black man for generations. A black man is a threat unless he's jumping on court in the NBA. Whether he's on the field running to catch a ball or on stage tap dancing and entertaining. But anything out of that, a black man is looked at as a threat. That's why black people are the most incarcerated. Black men are the most incarcerated in America. And by incarceration, we mean prison.
And I think the highest incarcerated population is in America.
Yeah, so. America loves to lock people.
Yeah.
It loves to lock people up, and it just so happens that the people they lock up the most are the people that they have subjected to a trap of poverty and not given the resources.
So that leads me to another. So we already said recommended Americana, but for viewing, if you haven't seen The 13th, it's a documentary by Ava DuVernay.
Ava DuVernay, yes.
It is so good. It really...
She's amazing.
Yeah, but it really helps you understand... systemic racism and the ongoing policies. It makes it easy to learn. So I think anyone should watch that.
Yeah, most definitely. Another book that I read, which was actually eye-opening, it was recommended by your dad. It was Cast. I don't remember who the author was. But that's another very good book to read, because this book dissects the world of class and control and racism and like all these other the isms basically that we'd like to deal with.
It's comparing what happened in apartheid South Africa, India, and the U.S. And I think seeing how all those systems work and the parallels it's very powerful.
Yeah. So as a black man in America, right? Who has listened to so much hip-hop music, and I mean the hip-hop music where the intelligent rappers are penning things. Mm-hmm. So in the US, when they describe that situation to you, so Nas describes artists and rappers and athletes as the new slaves. Mm-hmm. And how them being tied up to their contracts kind of ties their hands to doing anything for the community, and how it's the same. A draft of choosing a musician, an artist to play for a team, is the same as choosing a slave.
Yeah. So people are like, oh, they're being paid so much. It's like, no, but they're still being totally exploited and not allowed to be themselves or express themselves. And yeah. The shut up and dribble basically comes out of that you are just this thing that is out there for our entertainment, right? But you're not even supposed to have an opinion. We've had that so many times that just because you've been allowed a few privileges, on this plantation, we shouldn't hear you speaking in the main house, America being the main house. Outside of the court, right? Outside of the basketball court or outside of wherever you're having your games, whatever your plantation is, whether you're in entertainment, because most musicians who are black are the ones signing slave deals to the record labels. Mm-hmm. Depending on where you're being exploited from, keep your mouth shut when it comes to other issues. Like you're just this vessel to make for us money. Do not for a second get it in your mind that you're powerful. That's why people like Muhammad Ali, who transcended that, are considered icons, and they'll always be idols to me. Yeah. So I respect what you said before, that to you want to see Africans and African Americans, think of them, everyone as just as Africans and a unified community. I think the way I now distinguish it is when you've lived here versus coming over here, it's the number of years you've had to endure.
You've had to endure the trauma.
Because you were protected from that for most of your life. But it's like, I'll say to you, like, this is when I understand. I'm like, imagine like being born, like every day of your life has been.
I probably would have died at 16 here. You know how big-headed I am when it comes to certain things. I don't think I would be alive if I'd been born in America. Like because I did come from a wealthy family, so I mean, let's assume there's a parallel. This hard to tell.
Yeah, but let's assume there's a parallel. Oh, I'm so this and that. But if you've been raised here and parents here have to instill like a sense of fear, like there's just certain things that happen here. Yeah. So you don't know. It's hard to know how you behave
but look at it as, even when parents instill fear, right? They still kill their children in a park. Yeah. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yes.
A policeman shoots a 13-year-old boy in a park. A certain boy went to see his cousins and apparently whistled at a at a white woman, and he was lynched. You get me? Like all through the eras, no matter what era I would have been born in, I think it's America would have killed me young. Oh, I would have died from another black man's bullet, or a policeman stops me somewhere and I think about fighting for my rights in that instance. Or I would have gotten robbed and, incarcerated and stabbed in jail. Who knows?
Yeah.
The story is grim here. I'm so sure there's so many other positives. Probably I would have still been a very successful rapper, or poet or storyteller, like Spike Lee, like always putting your people's stories on the screen and writing amazing stories, or be a Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan stays out of everybody's business and just concentrates on his basketball. He doesn't really speak up for black people. They say he donates, but like you would hope for more. You'd hope like to see more of a LeBron in a Jordan. So there are some people who just stay out of the whole picture, not speak up.
Yeah.
And that's how they manage to stay alive. Or
yeah. So I'm thinking, like, I know that your experience was definitely like subtle racism or microaggressions. You experienced that since you arrived, but I'm wondering, since
in my experience, I didn't experience that until when I arrived.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
No. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm saying once you came to the States, you had those experiences.
No. I didn't have those experiences. I did not have those experiences because I did not have the understanding yet to discern that these are actually...
So when did you start discerning that?
I think I should say 2 years in. 2 years.
Okay, so the point is, as you realized what behaviors or responses or actions were American versus having an issue with you and your skin color. Because you're learning American culture. So it's like every country, do people have different ways of interacting with each other in public or in private? Because there's what happens publicly, there's what happens at a dinner party. There's like all different. Yeah.
I don't want to paint a very grim picture of America. It is a grim picture of America because America is not willing to reform on it.
Right.
The way that I looked at the U.S. when I was in Uganda is totally different from my understanding of America now. Do not get me wrong. I love this place.
So what were you, because you were very exposed to pop culture, to film, music, what was your idea of what America was like, and what was America like for a black person? Did you think about it like that?
So this is what's funny. Every time we saw America on the screen, we were always attracted to... I was attracted to black film. right? The comedians and the hip hop culture, the dressing, NBA, basketball, that type of thing. And I remember watching TV. No, I remember having a conversation with the very first American person that I met. And he was telling me about those are the poor people, and I did not believe him. You get me?
Wait, you mean the characters are the poor people? What do you mean?
Yeah, like it's set in a poor neighborhood. And I was telling him, are you kidding me?
I mean, it depends on the show or movie, because I'm like,
let's take like let me try to find a place a movie which happens in the project or something so if you show an African a street in Compton,
yeah,
right, and you have electricity, there's water that's running, there's a car parked outside, and you're saying there is poverty, they're going to look at you as a crazy person.
It looks like a middle upper class neighborhood in Uganda.
No, according to compared to where I grew up, compare that to my home.
That's why I said it looks like a middle to middle upper class in Uganda.
No, you're rich.
There's still neighborhoods that are
worse,
nicer than
Compton.
I said if you put Compton in Uganda, it would be upper middle class. I didn't say it's upper class.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, most
like,
definitely,
Just giving
yeah. But for us looking at that growing up, and the Uganda you're looking at right now is the Uganda that has improved. I'm talking about the Uganda where I grew up in the 90s. That was much crazier in the definition of what a ghetto was, where the sewage was running through.
The definition of poverty.
The definition of poverty was totally different. Because for us, a person who is able to get onto in a car, someone who has a TV and a radio and electricity, that wasn't poverty at all. So I remember having that conversation, and it was telling me that those were the poor people, but I did not believe him. And he was African American.
I was just about to ask, was this a white guy or okay?
Yeah. So I think he was telling me about, I think we're talking about a DMX album and a Nas album, and he's like, those are the projects, that's where it's really hard out there. But I'm like, why is he saying it's hard out there? Like, and I think my understanding of the US again, it first came from admiration of the lives that they used to live, right? And the second education came through now when I understand the language and the slang, and I'm now seeing Queens bridge through a poet called Nas's Eyes. And he's talking about broken glass on the hallway, blood-stained floors, neighbors look at every bag you bring to your door. He's describing a situation in a project, basically.
Right.
And there's blood on the floor, broken glass, and they are trying to take away what you have. That's when you begin understanding that, they are actually living in a dangerous place. Because most of these other movies were about people shooting each other, people robbing each other, but we thought the gangster was a fictional character.
Yeah.
We didn't know that was real. So that's one way. That's one way of looking at it. There's also the other way, with the sweeter way of looking at America, where I was raised on a musical. Remember I told you that growing up in a ghetto, all I had was Grease. Yeah, Grease. So for my parents to protect me from my environment, which was like poverty, African poverty, and third world country poverty, right? The escape that I had, or for them to protect me, they put us basically in a bubble where we had books, we had records to listen to, and 2 movies that were on repeat, so one of those movies was Grease. Funny enough, it's a musical, John Travolta, and we learned every word which was in this musical. So growing up as a child, I didn't even know that was America, I think. I just knew that was like this thing that's from wherever. It's until...
Yeah, because you had a lot of content from the UK, from Australia. It's hard. It would be hard to differentiate.
Yeah, and to me, America was through the lens of movies, from Van Damme to Chuck Norris to Schwarzenegger, and how they always won all the wars, and how their people would never die, and how everybody had like poor shooting aim, and somehow the movie stars from America always shot everybody. That kind of that's what I saw. Rainbow First Blood, like America always won, and America fought for what was right.
Do you know I've never seen the Rambo movies?
I'm going to. Oh my God, we must watch Rambo.
I'm not even interested,
3.
But everyone I meet in Uganda is like obsessed with all the Rambos.
Because that's what everybody grew up on. That's what everybody grew up on. John Rambo was a star in my hood. Yeah. Like, you would beg your parents for money so you and your friends could go somewhere and watch a Rambo film.
Yeah, to me it's like, but I'm not. It's like a bloody action movie, and I feel like watching it now, we'd both be like, wow, this is really
really bad, terrible,
racist, and I'm sure the way they depict
most of them, if you go back and look at these things, the way they predict
in where, in like Vietnam and Southeast Asia.
Usually it was America winning over the Vietnamese, right. America in Afghanistan. Rambo was about Afghanistan, by the way.
Interesting.
But recently I saw this clip where someone brought back a clip from a Rambo 4 movie. And Rambo, I think it's a Rambo 3 or 4. But in this clip, Sylvester Stallone is sent on a mission. I don't know what he's going to do over there, but he's meant to be, this one man is going to take on a whole country and the whole people. And,
the ultimate white savior.
The ultimate white savior is here to F up the Russians and,
Yeah.
But this guy told him, you're not the first guys here. Alexander the Great came here. Like, he mentioned, Napoleon came. He mentioned, all the people who have been through Afghanistan with their armies, and all their empires ended there. Mm-hmm.
But he still won.
No, in the movie he won.
Yeah.
But we all see. Do you remember the images that of people, Afghans, climbing onto planes as the last American plane was leaving?
Yeah.
It was supposed to be a slam dunk of go bring democracy to these people. Kill the terrorists, bring democracy to these people. But we all know how much money has been lost, the human cost, and it's a failure. If you call it out that way, it is a failure.
Definitely.
But through my young eyes, America always fought for what was right. America was always for the little guy, and it was a place where all the dreams came true. And if you worked so hard, you could get anything you'd ever wanted. You get me? And it was the land of ice cream, and it's a beautiful place. It's a beautiful idea.
Now that you're saying this, because
before you get to know the foreign policy.
But I was going to say, given the division between African American diaspora and African Americans, having that vision of America.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people who come here still have that vision.
Oh, definitely.
Particularly people who stay, I know people will stay within the diaspora and really kind of stay in a bubble. I mean, people will have experiences where they're discriminated against, but they're still having the experience of I'm starting from nothing. I'm getting jobs, working 3 jobs, and now I have my own business.
Yeah.
But again, it doesn't come with the weight of the legacy of discrimination, the legacy of trauma.
Yeah.
Even being able to come here with that feeling, as opposed to a Black person born here. I think that those feelings get shattered at, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years old. You start feeling marginalized, and
6, 7 years old experience in the US.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I should say, even with the people who come over to the US with that mentality, right? Mm-hmm. You have several different, there's a spectrum of African that lands at LAX or Logan or Kennedy or wherever they come into the country. Some are very educated, like
PhDs,
genius PhD at a very young age, doctor, professor, whatever. So that's a very different type of African. A wealthy family, because Africa has billionaire families, you know, like take off on a plane, go to France, have a weekend type of families. Yeah. And this is not for business. This is just the firstborn of that family going to have a good time. So there is that type of African, and his experience is totally different from someone like me, or someone coming from a poor family or a village coming to the US. So in Entebbe airport, usually when we are leaving, and this is Kampala's airport, you observe girls who go to the Middle East for work,
I hate
right?
it. Yeah, it makes me sick.
There's a point I'm trying to make here.
Yeah.
So I look at these young girls, and each and every time my heart sinks. Because the country has failed to provide for these young people in their own country.
Yeah.
But also because they don't know the horrors waiting for them on the other side of the continent. You get me?
Yeah.
Like, America has its racism, but the Arabs have their racism as well.
Yeah.
And these are girls.
Yeah, it's
a household where they're basically going to be the house help. Call it house
it's a
slave.
form of it is a form of trafficking.
It's a form of trafficking.
But the numbers of people who are physically, sexually, emotionally abused, it's almost everyone, and it's really bad.
But how do you convince somebody, right? How do you convince somebody who, you know that reality and you know what comes out of that, but how do you convince them when you see the look of these young, very excited girls banding up, gossiping, you know, excited they're going to be on the plane, probably for the very, very first time.
Yes.
And usually their families have borrowed money, sold pieces of land, so they can get a ticket to go to these places and work, right? There is no way you can convince them that it's going to be a terrible experience.
Can't say turn around, don't go.
Yeah, turn around, don't go. So some people, I say that to say that some people come to the US and accept the facts as they are. I'm going to a racist place, and they know it. But they're just there to put their head down, to save enough to put their kids through school. So they are going to accept everything. You want to call me the N-word? Fine, as long as I get a little bit of money to send back home. There's that type of African too. Then there's the African who is urban, educated, independent, you know, is out here to just actually look for an opportunity to make more money. He's not going to take your shit because he knows how to look for another opportunity elsewhere. Those exist as well. There is the African who's the athlete. There's the African who's the religious zealot, that anything Jesus or anybody who says Jesus or was made in the image of who has this color apparently of Jesus with blue eyes and hair that swings, they have like a white savior complex because they have been imprisoned in their minds that this is the place for saviors. So they will listen to everything a white man says. There's that type of African too who has been miseducated, and that this machine of selling American propaganda and superiority is working. You get me? So they worship everything African, they worship everything white. So you find that in the community of immigrants, you have all of these people who think different.
Yes.
You have people who will not match with the African Americans as they're marching for Black Lives Matter. Because they I hear all of these conversations, and then you have all of these Africans who see something like Black Lives Matter and they are like, yes, it's about time we united everybody, built a black economy, and rescued our people from this tyranny.
Yes. So explain to people why Africans would not support the movement.
I've just explained it to you. I've just explained.
Because they're keeping their head down?
No. I've just explained it to you. It's all of those factors. Either you're keeping some are keeping their head down.
Accepting the racism?
And accepting the racism. Some do not know that is racism. They have been indoctrinated in their minds to call their brothers and sisters lazy. They do not get that this is systemic racism. They don't have that education to know that this is American systemic racism that keeps these people trapped in that situation.
Right.
So an African immigrant will come to the US, work his butt off for the first 3 years and own a car, have an apartment, and do all these other things. And to them, that's the good life, and they have lifted themselves out of poverty.
Right.
And they'll begin looking at these other people as lazy, forgetting that you began with a clean slate. You've never been imprisoned. So people will offer you a job. Our African American brothers, whether they want to or not, the police patrolling their every corner and every inch of what they are doing, they are bound to end up in jail, right? With a record that's going to deny them a job. Also,
or your sibling has that experience, so you're helping to support their family because of that. Like there's African American, layers of...
Yeah, they spend their savings on bail. They spend their savings on trying to save a son with a medical condition. They spend their everything and scrape, and I have a lot of admiration for African Americans because I don't think I would have managed. Like, for them to be able to scrape the bottom and create beauty out of what we see now, you know, you have to tip your hat off for them.
Yeah.
And to do that with the trauma that you have to live with, what's to stop you from not going insane when you know your grandfathers, your ancestors, your father, your mother, and probably your siblings are facing the same things that your generation has always faced, and there's no such pain. I often hear people say, when you deny the man a father, when people who don't grow up with their fathers or their fathers reject them, grow up with a hole in their heart, always, right? Now you imagine being denied your history. A father is only one. But imagine a people who have been denied a history. They don't even know where they're from. You deny them the blessings that come from the vibration of your name being... So for me, somebody can call my name and say, NSIMBI. And that name, I believe that name comes with blessings. Just out of calling it, I know who I am. It's a reminder of who I am, the things that I represent, and where I belong. Some people have been denied that blessing because they have slave names. That's why it was important for people like Malcolm X to rename themselves, to like Muhammad Ali to take on a totally different name. I don't want the curses of your name, whatever, on myself. It's a way of me freeing myself and being independent of whatever chains that your names and whatever you denied from me. Let me try to win that. Let me try to win that back. So, yeah, it's a very, very complex experience. It has its beautiful parts, I must say, but I don't think this is the day to discuss all of that. You know, like there are times I go out and just have a good time with people. And there are times you're just glad, or you're in a room and you see another black man and there's this nod we give each other, and for some reason it has like a lot of, even if they don't come over and say hi or whatever, but just that nod,
acknowledgement, shared experience or acknowledgement. Yeah, it's like
a library of books in what that means. Like you understand each other just within that.
So I think black people do the nod, and Jews, it's like you confirm the other person's Jewish, or they're like, where are you from? Are you, or once you are sure the person's Jewish, then there's some kind of like
exactly
click or acknowledgement.
There's another thing I wanted to discuss with you. Do you remember when we walked through Hong Kong?
Well,
I was the only black man for weeks.
Yeah, because I was thinking,
that was scary.
Yeah, yes, that's why I was going to say it's not, because I remember when you're saying, oh, coming to the U.S. was when you really felt you were black, but that happens all over the world. Because I'm talking about Asia.
Yeah. I felt black, but did not feel the kind of American. When you feel black in America, it's different. Like in China, much as Chinese also have.
Do you remember
problems.
In China when we went through immigration, you were pulled over for like
everything,
all kinds of. I had to go get you and find and So, and they were like, I mean, that was like scary. Like when you're pulled.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
because once again, what's their education for how they view black people?
Right.
Movies. Police academy. Like that's their education. So Hong Kong is
there's not.
Hong Kong is the westernized part of China.
Yes.
So it's like going to another version of a colonized land.
But I can tell you, anywhere you go in China, people would be staring at you, and there wouldn't be.
Yeah, I would be tall and more handsome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm playing. Yang Ming is taller. Yeah, but I'm saying, there's where you stand out, and the standing out is not, they don't harbor certain things. But in the US, it's to stand out, and you're reminded of.
So in China, you're not scared
of who you are,
or a police is gonna create an issue for you. Like you don't feel targeted.
No, I don't feel targeted. Maybe I haven't really had a long Chinese experience, but I didn't feel targeted. But in the US, I'm currently seeing a therapist because every time I get into my car, I'm scared I'm going to get pulled over and shot. Mm-hmm. That's what America has done to me. I could drive anywhere else, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I used to get into a car and drive in Denmark. No worry. Not to say that Denmark doesn't have these issues, but Denmark, Sweden.
Well, I would say, or I'm going to ask you, I guess, what would you say has been your experience or understanding since COVID and Black Lives Matter? Like, did you start having more stress and anxiety? Like, did it become more real to you then?
Yeah, because
like I feel like I used to say, because I think there were like times, I won't say exactly, but maybe behaviors in a car that were not the best moves that I used to give you a hard time about.
Yeah, like what?
Okay, I guess I'm like, sorry, Mom, Dad. There'd be times you'd have an open container in a car or things like that. And
open container like
a beer, a drink, different or you and your friends or things like that. And I'd be like, you thought I was like after you, trying to stop the fun, like be on your part, like
first of all,
for me it was like the risk of you getting caught. I mean, first of all, as an immigrant, you have immigration issues, and as a black man, like it was like, why would you play with that?
But here's the thing. Nobody explains these rules to you.
But
because
I think they were explained. No. I think they were explained to you. You'd heard it, but it still felt unreal.
But who explains it to people on a visitor's visa?
Okay, but I think the problem was your white wife was trying to tell you.
Because everywhere else in the world, it's only America that has that rule. You know that if you're in the passenger seat, you can enjoy a beer.
Okay, but I told you.
Except in America.
First of all, I told you that, and you were aware of it. Same with weed or things like that. And so it's the question is, you didn't know you were breaking the law, or you didn't have.
I'm not even a weed smoker. You just put it out there, and like even with the weed, I'm not.
You've smoked right now, weed is legal, and but you've been in cars with people smoking weed.
Yeah, I've been in cars with people
now
smoking a ton of weed. Yes.
But and also, even if it's legal, I would say that a car full of black people. I've been in a car with
Snoop Dogg.
A car full of black people smoking weed, even if it's illegal, wouldn't you think that a cop would pull them over just to hassle them?
Yeah, I just had this conversation with my friend who was telling me, because I was telling her, after understanding what America was, I began telling my white friends, my Chinese friends and whatever, to always be careful. Like, let's make sure everything is kosher, basically.
Yeah.
So I remember this incident. We're coming from Long Beach, and we had just been hanging out at the beach. We were shooting. Actually, he was shooting a video for me. No, we were shooting a pilot for sure. And he was driving me back. We had a lot of equipment in the car, but it had just been such a long day that this was that moment that every director, every artist is like, it's a wrap. Everything is packed in. You have a beer, and then you unwind, and
Right.
Yeah, but he began smoking weed in the parking lot, and I wasn't comfortable with that. So
it may or may not have been legal at that point. I think it was legal.
It was only legal for people with glaucoma.
Wow.
You know what that
the
means?
laws
like,
have changed so much.
Yeah. It was only legal for people who had like eye problems, or they use it for. It was only legal for medical, reasons.
You're right.
So, so he was smoking weed in the parking lot, but I was telling him to put it away because it was making me uncomfortable. I didn't want to do anything, be found in any situation. I just want to live, my life and BG. So he's like, hey, don't worry about that. Let's go. So we get into the car, and then we are on the highway, and then I realize he still has it in his hand as he's entering the highway, Mm-hmm. And I began telling him to throw it out. Yeah. So he began doing it in a playful way, right? Ha, cop is going to stop us, and they're going to see this little weed. So he begins teasing me about having the weeds, but he had no understanding that he was only able to do that because he was a white boy, and that if we were caught with it, probably a good cop would let you off. A good cop, it wouldn't be anything. But if it's a day when you meet the ones they call the bad apples, you could probably spend time in jail. They would find a reason to put you in jail. They would slam your head on the concrete as they're telling you to put your hands behind your head and start claiming you're resisting and trump up charges. And before you know it, you're in a jail somewhere, or dead. He tried to grab my gun. I was scared for my life. All the bullshit and excuses that they make. So it was during the Black Lives Matter thing that he called me and began apologizing for that incident that he finally understood what I
years
said.
later.
Yes.
Well, that's what I think. So obviously, like BLM, there's been some progress made, but then there's a lot of like frustration with wanting more progress. But I would say but there has been some awakening. So I would say for a lot of benign white people, people who think are well-intentioned, that BLM has helping them to realize that there's so much that they're perpetuating without realizing, or just to be more sensitive. I just
don't get it that these people don't know what's going on. Like I feel like the ignorance is feigned to a certain degree. I just don't see how you cannot know. After 300 years of slavery, of killing, of having a holiday, Martin Luther, of having Black History Month, of people trying to ban all these laws, of voter suppression, of this, you cannot feign ignorance. So and so was shot and it was a black. No, you accept that. You're accepting these things to happen in your society because they're not happening to you. Period. That's what's happening. You accept them because they're not happening to your children or your cousins. That's what's up. But during Black Lives Matter and the number of videos that I saw on Twitter of cops shooting black people, there's actually a website. There's this kid who gave a TED talk. He collects all of these times that black people have been shot by the police and the excuses that they give, and he put it into a website. Very brilliant. I think he's a comedian, he owns a tech company as well, and he gave a very brilliant TED talk. That's the reality that I have to face every morning. Every time I get into a car, that's the reality I face. When I enter,
it's not just a car.
Yes,
I think there was also there was such an emphasis for a long time on it's the car. And then now it's like it's in your bed. It's buying groceries.
Yes.
It's picking up your kid. Like it's
anywhere. Too many black people having fun at one party or one restaurant, and it's people barbecuing now, and the Becky, or what do they call them, Karen, calls people on them. Yeah. It's you enjoying basketball at a park.
I want to get back to this idea of ignorance, or
it's feigned ignorance.
Feigned means pretend?
Yeah. Or it's accepted ignorance.
Maybe it's accepted. Yeah, because there are people who pretend to be ignorant. There's people who are racist and say, I want those people to suffer, and I'm glad they're going through shit because I don't like them and they deserve it. There's people who pretend they don't know and are aware and just, it's not a priority because, as you're saying, not my people, not going to be my kid, not going to whatever. Yeah. Just doesn't affect me. But I think there clearly as much as the history is there, there's obviously such a large population of people that just don't get it, even though they've heard things over the years. Or I mean, in our education,
I agree with that
the education,
to a certain extent, yeah.
I'd say like going to school, you learn about slavery, and then you have a unit on the civil rights movement.
Mm-hmm.
And growing up, that feels so far away.
Yeah.
And then there's some in school, you're not. So I'm imagining, okay, I went to a school that was primarily white people. But I had some black friends. I was exposed to black people. I've always been someone has friends from different ethnic groups, different races, likes to travel. Like that's me. But I'm imagining in a white school, or some schools are literally like all white, like one kid of color. So if you're
the token child.
If the last thing you're learning about any race issue comes from the civil rights movement, and it's left as like, and then all this progress was kind of made.
But it's not related to the present.
Yeah, I'm saying if there's no unit about current, like that's what the argument is right now, to be able to put like, there's no unit saying this is systemic racism and how it affects black people today. Yeah. Which it needs to be there. But since the society denies it.
Yeah, the society denies it because it requires people to do work on themselves, and there are people who feel that.
So when you're
who feel that this puts the guilt on them, much as they are not the people perpetuating it.
Yes.
There's that feeling as well, and then we have political parties whose whole agenda is dedicated to using that to miseducate people, or to use every incident to switch bait,
But I think that's just so right now there's been going through in U.S. government the push to teach about racism and slavery, like update the history.
No, that's some states.
The point is there's a movement that's there's a struggle. So, but this just shows the importance.
There's a movement to ban critical race theory.
Yes.
Which is the theory where they teach. Explain that to me.
I don't even know.
From what I understand, it's what shows.
What is? It's probably just something about understanding racism.
Yeah. We need to. We're basically understanding the story of
progressive
in America.
Progressive people want kids to now learn about that, because as we just said, you leave off at civil rights movement, you leave off at like 1970, and then there's some fantasy about what happens over those next years and into the present. So there's a movement to update that, but the movement against that is stronger currently.
Oh yeah, the movement.
But the reason I'm saying that is what we just talked about is like, you're saying, what is this ignorance? Is it real? Is it feigned? But like, I think there is real ignorance, and it's not okay. But until kids are taught the real history, there's no way around it, because I'm saying there's so many people in so many areas of America are just white, and it's white kids going to school with white kids, not learning the history and not engaging with any person, a black person of color, literally their entire life. So
what is critical race theory? This is according to a blog called Education Post, Better Conversation, Better Education. And they say, critical race theory, sometimes abbreviated to CRT, is an intellectual approach to looking at U.S. society with a belief that racism is at the core of its laws and institutions.
AKA, the U.S. was built using slaves. And
built using slaves. It's written in the code of the Constitution, calling people 3/5 of a human being. Basically the whole shebang, Jim Crow and 13th Amendment, and
prison industrial
complex. You can
find
all of this. Like, who doesn't see it? Like,
so no, it's there, and the people who don't want it to be discussed. They don't want the nation to have an awakening.
Because they are afraid it will also lead to. I don't see where their loss is, because if you've had a head start,
it's a fear of losing power.
It's a fear of losing power. But because if you give people equity and you already have the money, like, where is the loss here? There's something,
because white men want to maintain full power. So if some black men start getting more government positions, if the government becomes like a certain percentage black, and then it's like
we have Obama. Oh my God, they had Obama, and what they did to Obama was brutal too. Obama couldn't win. They couldn't allow him to win. You know, like.
So I don't know. There's a long, long, long way to go.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm trying.
But but I'm hopeful. For me, the whole theory of America is that it's an idea that we have to refine and keep refining and keep refining and keep refining and refine what has been refined in order to arrive at what.
So I don't know that I would say that I don't think hopeful is the word I'd use, but I think I acknowledge that the U.S. is a new country compared to the rest of the world.
Compared to Uganda, which is only 1967?
No, okay.
62,
You're saying, yeah, but it was a country. I mean, come on. Before then, it's had its own history. So the U.S.
Even the U.S. had its own history.
Yes, so it had Native Americans, indigenous people. But that was like, I'd say, so here's the difference. Because the colonists came over and wiped out Native culture, like took over. It's as if it's like you're not even, nothing from the Native people has been taken into, it's not like that's part of the foundation of our country and building it. Whereas in Uganda, it was still the same people, tribes, culture. It just went through a period of colonization, got like distorted, and then kind of has been rebuilding, right?
Yeah, it's rebuilding, and hopefully we'll get rid of everything.
And then you look at European countries that have been through revolutions and civil wars, and so to me it's like, okay, the US, there's hope, but I'm not sure that's in my lifetime. I think it's like, okay, it has to be,
it can happen in your lifetime,
decades and centuries of like revolution and different kind of change, and then eventually, I mean, I'm optimistic when I know that the US is going to become, what is it, by 2040, 2050, it's going to be majority people of color.
If they don't shoot all of us.
So I'm looking forward to the US, that switch. Like, I can't wait to see how that can start to make a change.
I don't think it's a thing of, you can still be the majority and lose. I've seen that happen several times over. There's a book called Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. And it explains how a village in Nigeria was taken over by 7 white people. So Okonkwo was exiled, right?
I could have sworn I've read this book, but now that you're telling me this, I'm like, that doesn't even sound familiar. I have to read it again.
I think you've read the book. We've discussed this. So Okonkwo was this very traditional African man, really strong builds, had his wives, strong household you could respect, but he went against the white people and he was banished by his own people from his land. But he had this hope while he was in exile that he was going to come back and fight and everybody was going to join him. He had all of these hopes, And so on coming back to the village, he called his friends and some of the chiefs and told them, it's time right now, go take these people out, fight them and, get what's ours back. But I think a guy called Oberika in this scene tells him, Okonkwo, if we are to look for the white people who are enslaving the minds of our people, it's very easy. We even know where they stay. We can take them out in one blow. But it's our brothers and sisters who have joined the white man's machine. And in that moment, Okonkwo realizes that things have fallen apart. Because much as we see this whole unfair world, there are people who believe it's the black people's fault, it's the Chinese people's fault, it's the Indian people's fault, it's the Mexicans' fault, it's not my fault, the art fault, because they are being made to believe that they have a place at the table that this white man has organized for them, or that the system, not only the white man, that the system has organized for them.
So then what makes
and so they will enforce this system for so many years.
So what makes you hopeful then?
They'll enforce this system through, again, the police. They'll enforce this system through the technology that they develop, right? But what keeps me hopeful is there's always good in human beings.
Yeah,
there was a time when the threat of Hitler nearly brought the world to its knees. But if it wasn't for the Russians, who are also evil in a certain way, but a lesser evil, who recognize how much evil Hitler was becoming and the things that he was enforcing. So if it wasn't for the Russians, the UK people, the Africans of Tunisia...
I don't think that people were fighting Hitler philosophically.
What do you think they were fighting Hitler for?
He was taking over territories. He was trying to take... He took European nations. He was it was a power thing. Yeah. And it certainly wasn't because of the Holocaust.
It wasn't suddenly just... it wasn't just because of the Holocaust.
No,
but
it was not at all.
Yeah. But I can tell you that if I was a moral leader, I think Churchill was appealing to the morality of the Western nations and the things that they stood to lose if Hitler took over. You get me? Like, he appealed to people to give away their soldiers, their resources, to divert resources to companies to manufacture weapons, to convince other nations like America to join the war. Yeah. Like, it was this appeal to the...
Well, I think it was sort of protecting democracy, protecting your freedoms or something.
So whether he did this
your white freedoms.
Your white freedoms, yes, and your white property. So whether he did this to just self-preservation of the UK, which again, the UK, we all know its legacy of colonialism and imperialism robbing everybody of their resources. So whether he did that out of looking out for the British interests, I believe there will soon be other leaders coming after him.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, when you say this,
there will be speeches. There will
so
always
you can say
people
that
believing in the human spirit.
Yes, but it takes that leadership. Yeah. So you can say, people are, that we always argue, are people inherently good or are people inherently evil?
Depends on,
And I feel like it depends on the leadership. Like, it's like we are both.
It depends on the leadership, and it depends on what circumstances. I read this thing which said that there is no such thing as a good human being or a bad human being. Mm-hmm. It's just people swinging on that pendulum of good and bad, depending on what circumstances they are put
Duality in everything.
And we all strive to find a balance. I find that I think every generation improves on another generation's work. We cannot just see it in one generation. Things regress. I'm saying things regress.
Because I'm thinking again when my parents are like, oh my God, what's going on? The world's falling apart.
Yeah. But your parents have also told me about when they went and saw black performers, and how that was a new thing, and, how they marched for
civil rights against the Vietnam War,
and
protesting
against the Vietnam War.
That's the thing.
It's this thing that every generation improves on. The cause by then was the Vietnam War, and seeing how immoral that was, and hopefully society will wake up and see how immoral systemic racism is, and people will march up again. This is not the last of it, because America's response to Black Lives Matter was to monitor all their phones, was to crack up on the leaders and label people terrorists. But I'm so sure that people can sift through all of that bullshit. And the Gen Zs are not as patient as the millennials. The baby boomers were much more patient with things because things were working out for them. Yeah. But for the millennials, it hasn't been kind.
Yeah.
And for the Gen Zs, it's worse.
This might be the reason.
So it might be the revolution that everybody's waiting for. But I'm like, this is
the one time I'm feeling that social media and things are good, making you impatient, making you have a low attention span. Like they want it now. Things need to move.
They want it now. Don't tell me yesterday. The planet is burning up. Greta is saying now. You stupid idiots sitting at the council telling us to be patient while the planet is burning up. Greta is saying now. The Gen Zs are saying now. There are millennials who are saying now. And it was people who said now that we ended up with at least a symbol of a black man in the White House. A symbol. I'm saying symbol because he wasn't allowed to achieve any other thing.
Yeah.
But if you had asked people in the 40s, 50s, if a black man would ever be president, not in his lifetime, wasn't in his right mind, Things happen. We only have to be hopeful. I'm so sure that the people in the townships of South Africa going through the evils of apartheid again, never even imagined that there would ever be a time when a black man would be president. The equal distribution of resources is another thing. That's another thing they have to get to.
Yeah.
So South Africa's Obama was Mandela.
Right.
Because he got in there, told everybody that this is what we have to aspire to, but was he allowed to equally distribute the resources again to the black people? No. South Africa's story is still unsettled. Mm-hmm. Just like America's story is still unsettled. Just because they got a black man in the White House doesn't mean that everything is rosy. Just because Mandela became the first president and power in quotes is in the hands of black leaders, that the story is over. No, there's still a lot of inequality to be dealt with. The people in Nazi camps and at Auschwitz and going through all of that suffering, I don't think they even had any hope that the war would come and free them. Hitler and the Nazi party were really strong. But it's that idea of hope that these people.
Yeah, I was going to say, that book I read most people who survived camps say it was the idea that it had to, like there would be an end. You had to make it live long enough.
But it's that idea that I'm talking about, of live long enough, be hopeful enough. There's that book I read of this guy who was being moved from one Holocaust camp to another. Mm-hmm. And in the cold, and
you're talking about Night. It's like one of the most famous Holocaust books.
Yeah. But to me, it's this place when he's in the snow and it's cold, and I hate the cold. Yeah. But it's this part where he's in the snow and the fingers are like, I think they described it as like bone on string or something like that. I could be making this up, but there's this scene where he played the violin, and they were describing how much hope that violin brought to people. Mm-hmm. I think that's where we are now. This is our winter. This is our winter as black people. But things will get better, and we shall
It's been a long winter.
It's been a long road.
Time for a new season.
A long time coming, but I know change's gonna come. It's your boy GNL Zamba.
I'm Miriam Tamar.
And together we are
NSIMBI.
Yes, tell us what you think in the comments below. We'd like to hear from you, your experiences. Share, and let's make the world a better place. Let's bring everybody together. Heal the divides. If there's anything that we stand on as a couple, it's to improve the human condition and create uplifting art and bring people together through dialogue and understanding.
Cheers to that.
Peace and love. Tuba Galanyo. Take care.